Hello, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to talk about VTIP. This is the Voluntary Transfer Incentive Program. And there's not a lot of information online about this program. However, there are a whole lot of officers that are interested in it. So I thought it would be helpful for a lot of people if I broke this VTIP process down. And I actually had a subscriber ask if I would discuss this topic. And of course, I'm happy to discuss topics that you all want more information about. So anytime you need information on a particular topic, just let me know in the comments below. I'm happy to cover the topic, and that way you can be knowledgeable on it. So we're going to talk about VTIP. We're going to talk about what the heck VTIP is. We're going to talk about the actual process from start to finish. And I'm also going to give you guys some helpful tips on how you can boost your application, therefore increasing your chances of actually transferring. Okay, so stick around. We're going to cover all that. Right now, I'm going to actually show you guys some video footage from a trip I took to the Botanical Gardens because they have a spectacular holiday light display going on right now, and I thought, who doesn't need a little bit of light in their life right now? So for the next minute and 42 seconds, I'm going to show you guys some of the footage that I took while I was at the Botanical Gardens. Hopefully you guys will enjoy that. Hopefully it'll lift your spirits, and if you don't have any interest in seeing that, just go ahead and skip forward a minute and 42 seconds. And I'll get right into VTIP. All right, guys, hopefully you enjoyed seeing the light display that's going on at the Botanical Gardens near my home. We're going to get into VTIP. So again, VTIP stands for Voluntary Transfer Incentive Program. And basically what it is the Army's way of balancing out the force. So every year there are certain specialties that have too many people, and of course there are specialties that don't have enough people. So the Army wants to incentivize you to switch from perhaps a branch that has far too many officers to a branch that has not enough officers. So in comes VTIP, right? So how do you find out about VTIP? Well, the military sends a MILPER message, and usually this message goes out every 6 months, and it comes from HRC, and it goes out to everybody. Some people, for whatever reason, overlook the email. However, if you are an officer serving in the Army, you should receive this message. It is a MILPER message. It comes from HRC, and it's about VTIP. All right, so the first step is to open up this MILPER message and read it thoroughly, because this message is going to tell you who is eligible for VTIP. So there are certain officers that are not eligible, and these officers include judge advocates and chaplains, for instance. And usually, if you are in an underserved branch, you are also not eligible. Because again, VTIP is used to balance out the force. What they want is to move you from an oversupplied branch into an underserved branch. Okay? And of course, when I say branch, I'm talking about whether you as an officer branched military intelligence, or maybe as an officer you branched transportation, or maybe you branched infantry. Okay? You guys know, if you've been watching, I actually branched military intelligence in the Army before switching over to the JAG Corps in the Army, and then eventually going all the way to the Air Force. And by the way, when I say VTIP, I am speaking specifically about the Army's program. Okay, so the Air Force doesn't have something called VTIP, but the Army does. And so that's what we're talking about today. And again, your very first step is going to be to open up this MILPER message and read it, because it's going to give you a lot of very useful information. And again, it's released about every 6 months. And there's also a VTIP panel held usually twice a year. And we'll talk more about that VTIP panel here in a moment. But basically, any given officer must meet 2 conditions to take part in VTIP. Okay? Your current branch must be listed as having too many people. And the desired branch must be listed as having not enough people. And again, the MILPER message will, give you a list of branches that are oversupplied and branches that are undersupplied. So the MILPER message will also go over the entry requirements for, functional areas that you might be able to transfer into. So you need to pay close attention to this. And so the entry, requirements for these functional areas vary widely. So for instance, part of the entry requirements for one functional area might include, a minimum score on the GRE, okay? And then, another functional area might actually require you to turn in a written essay. So open up the MILPER message that comes out about every 6 months. Look and see if your current branch is oversupplied, and look at the list of branches that are undersupplied, and then look at the entry requirements for those underserved functional areas, or branches if you want to call them that. And then decide, okay, am I interested in getting into VTIP, and also am I eligible to get into VTIP? And I just kind of want to give you guys a flow chart quickly. So number 1, you're going to look at that MILPER message that comes out from HRC. Number 2, you're going to decide if you're interested in VTIP, and you're going to decide by reading the MILPER message whether you are eligible for VTIP. The third thing you're going to do, if you decide you're interested and eligible, is you're going to put in a VTIP application. Then the 5th thing you're going to do is you are going to go to a VTIP panel, assuming your application gets that far in the process. The final step, of course, is you're going to be rejected or accepted. If you are accepted, you're going to transfer to your desired functional area. So you're going to leave the branch you were, and you're going to set off on a brand new path. Now, a lot of people ask the question, well, what happens if you're rejected? If you are rejected, you just simply stay in the branch that you're currently in. So if you started this process as an MI officer and you're rejected through VTIP, you're just going to stay an MI officer, okay? And so those are the steps that you're going to take. That's, step 1 all the way through the very last step. So you've read the message. You've decided you're interested, you've decided you're eligible. So you send your application off. The application actually goes to the Leader Development Division, or LDD, at HRC. Of course, HRC is Human Resources Command. And LDD collects the applications, they review the applications for completeness, and then they distribute the applications to officers. Now, these officers will represent the branch you're currently in, and they will also, represent the branch or functional area that you're hoping to transfer into. And what these officers are going to do is they're actually going to look at your application and they're going to provide comments on them. So, of course, you hope to get good comments on your application because these comments will go to the VTIP board, okay? But again, before you go to the VTIP board, officers from your branch and from the branch you hope to get into will review your application, and they will make comments on basically whether you're a desirable or undesirable candidate. And, I mentioned earlier, some of these career fields require extensive application materials such as GRE scores, undergraduate transcripts. Some functional areas even have special tests that you have to take and special questionnaires. And again, you're going to look at that MILPER message to determine, exactly what information you need to put in your application based on the functional area you are hoping to get into. All right, so your application goes with these comments to the VTIP panel. So the VT panel is typically 5 to 6 senior officers and civilians at Human Resource Command. And what they're doing is they are looking at your application and deciding whether you should be allowed to transfer or not. And they individually award a score for each application, ranging from 2 to 6 for each applicant. So of course, you're probably asking, well, how do I boost my application to receive, a 6 instead of a 2? Well, you should look at Army Regulation 614-100, and I'm going to make it easy for you guys. It's on page 11. All right, and I'm going to put the link, well, not the link, but I'm going to put the AR up here for you so you can read it, and then you can actually just plug that into Google and pull up the AR. It establishes, factors for considering transfers between career fields. So this is really where you can pick up some points on how to boost your application. So one of the factors is branch alignment. Another factor is civilian and military education. So, the more military education you have, the more civilian education you have, especially if it's related to the functional area you want to get into, that is definitely a feather in your cap. They're also going to look at a third factor, which is the overall manner of your performance and career potential. So, of course, making sure those, OERs are hashtag boss status. Making sure that your OREs, say that you have unlimited potential and that you should be promoted ahead of your peers. This is the kind of language you want to see in your OERs. And the fourth factor is special qualifications. So, depending on the functional area, you might have like a specialized skill set that just fits that functional area like a glove. So if that's the case, you're going to be a standout, obviously. Another factor is a demonstrated aptitude for branch-specific training and assignments. So, they're going to look at your application and they're going to say, okay, has he or she demonstrated an interest in this functional area? So maybe you work within that area in the civilian sector because you're a reservist or a guardsman, or maybe before you went active duty, you worked in that particular, functional area. If so, you need to make sure you highlight this in your application. And of course, finally, and we all expected this, the final factor, factor number 6, is needs of the Army, okay? And that brings us back to the purpose of VTIP, and it is to balance out the force, to make sure we have the right number of people in, the variety, the various career fields within the Army. I thought that it might be useful for you guys to hear about how many applications are received and how many applications are approved and denied. So, from 2014 to 2019, telecommunications systems engineer, okay? This functional area received 109 applicants and there were 66 approvals. So that's a 61% approval rate. Okay, and again, that's Foxtrot Alpha 24, telecommunications systems engineer. Let's look at strategic intelligence. Some of you MI officers might be interested in strategic intelligence. So this would be Foxtrot Alpha 34. And they received from 2014 to 2019 251 applications. And there were 135 approvals. So that's a 54% approval rating. Information operations. So this is Foxtrot Alpha 30. 191 applicants from 2014 to 2019 and 89 approvals. So that's a 47% approval rating. Some of you might be interested in space operations. This is Foxtrot Alpha 40. They received 528 applicants. So you can see what's, popular and what's not. So of 528 applicants, 225 were accepted. So that is a 43% approval rating. So I thought that it would be interesting for you guys to hear some of those numbers, particularly if you want to know what your chances are of being accepted into a certain functional area. Now, another thing I want to do for you guys is I want to put up the growth rates in several different functional areas. So you should see that on your screen now. And I want you guys to pay particular attention to the functional areas that have shrunk. So if you look toward the bottom of this chart, you'll see functional area 51 has actually shrunk. On the other hand, at the top of the chart here, functional area 40 has experienced significant growth between 2010 and 2019. So several functional areas had a robust, presence. And if you, will look and see, which ones have shrunk and which ones have, grown, that'll also, of course, give you a really good idea of the areas that are booming and that, need officers the most. All right, so just quickly, guys, you're gonna look at that VTIP MILPER message that comes out twice a year. You are going to read that to determine whether you are an eligible and interested officer. If you are both eligible and interested in VTIP, you are going to send off your VTIP application. And your application is going to be reviewed by officers in your current field and in the field that you're hoping to transfer into. And they're going to make comments and they're going to make recommendations to the VTIP panel. The VTIP panel is going to assign your application a number, and hopefully it'll be a higher rather than a lower number, and then you're going to receive either good news or bad news. Just keep in mind, if you get rejected, you're just going to stay in your current branch. It's not that you get kicked out of the military or anything like that. And if you do get accepted, then you're going to transfer to a brand new functional area. If you guys have any questions, make sure you drop those below. Thanks for liking and subscribing, guys. I hope that you find the information on this channel useful. Again, if you want to learn about a particular topic, feel free to ask me to cover it, and I'm happy to do so. Until next time.